high-level design for a Google type ahead system. So before I start, with the discussion, let me quickly introduce myself. So I'm Prakhar Agrawal, and I'm working as a software engineer 3 at Google. And as a part of this session, we'll try to understand, given a question on a high-level design, what are the things which you should cover as a part of 1 hour interview, and then we'll go into the details of this particular design. And as a part of the next class, we'll try to see some implementations of the things which will do today as a part of the high level design. I would request everyone of you to please stay on mute until unless you don't have any questions. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself as long as there is no background noise from your side. Okay. I'll give you time to ask questions after every part we'll discuss for Google Typeaid system, and you can shoot you can ask your questions after that. So let's start with the Google Typeaid system. So what exactly does this means? So let's say there is you need to create a Google search, you need to design a Google search bar, and as soon as the user is typing few characters, as soon as the user is typing few characters, uh, you should be able to. Sorry. Okay, I thought someone is asking. Anyone, someone is saying something. But yeah. So basically, user is typing few characters, and you should be able to return top 10 suggestions to the user for the typed characters. Now, which suggestion should you return? So the suggestions which you need to return to be returned should have maximum frequency in your. For example, let's say there is a user is typed CA at the first two characters. We should be able to return. Just a second. Yeah, you should be return. You should be able to return. Let's say cat. The frequency of cat is more. Apart from, I mean, there can be so many words which can start with CA. So let's say the top 10 suggestions can be some cat, cattle, camel, car, cabs, or it can be other many more, right? So you can consider that there are top 10 suggestions like this, and you need to return those suggestions. This is the question given to you. Now, how to proceed this particular questions? So always in a high level design, you start with figuring out all the requirements for a given design question. So first part or the first important component is figure out the requirements. Now we'll try to discuss the requirements for this particular question with the interviewer. In general, there are two kinds of requirements. There are functional requirements, and then there are non-functional requirements. In case of functional requirements, then I mean these requirements are generally provided by the end users. So what will be the functional requirements? So in this case, let's start with some of the functional requirements. So what should we do? So the first requirement is that we our system should be able to return top 10 suggestions. Correct. What can be other requirements? So we can say that you should update the frequency of the word which has been searched. Anything else? So we can say that here we are considering only words and not the sentences. What are the other assumptions? Say that these are the assumptions which you have. Correct. Other assumption which we have here is, uh, spell checks are not required. Basically, for an example, let's say a user is typing CATTLE, so you don't need to return KETTLE as the response, because it could be possible that user might have made a spell check. I mean, has typed the wrong spelling, but here you don't need to consider that. So can I say here out of scope? Spell checks are out of scope. What else do we need? Customization, right? Customize searches. So basically, based on the user's previous searches, you actually customize. So you put this also is out of scope. Requirement, and you say that if we'll have time, then we'll discuss the requirements. For now, we'll just focus on these two queries. And here we are assuming that on only words has to be considered. You don't need to consider the sentences for now. Okay. Then yes, please go ahead. Are there any questions here?
Prakhar, second and fifth point are exactly same, right? Update the frequency of word which has been searched, and that's what customized searches are there.
No, no. Customized searches means that let's say there is a user, and based on their previous results, you show them some other suggestions, and then there is another user, based on their previous searches, you show them some other suggestions. So that is customized search. Correct. You have to update the frequency of whatever word has been searched, but you don't give, I mean, based or customized, I should say customized suggestions. It's a little better.
Yeah, it will not be user dependent, right? It will be like whole of the.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Cool. Now let's move on to the non-functional requirements. So in general, non-functional requirements are the requirements which, as an engineer, should be decided, and not having non-functional requirements, or not considering non-functional requirements might lead to bad design and hamper user experience. So we generally talk about these. As a part of non-functional requirements, there are specific things which we always talk about. So what should be the latency of your system? Here you can see that user will be able to type couple of characters within few, I will say few milliseconds, not even, I mean, maybe more than a microsecond, but few milliseconds, right? Like 10 milliseconds. So latency, and you should be able to give them the suggestions very, very quickly after that. So can I say that latency should be low, approx 10 to 20 milliseconds? It should not take more than that, right? So because another thing which we can consider as a part of the functional requirements is that you wait for another 50 milliseconds before you return the next results. So what I mean by this is that, let's say the user is typing CA, you have returned some results for the CA, then you wait for some more time. So you user might 50 milliseconds, and user might type ME as well in the meantime. And now basically based on CA ME, you return the top 10 suggestions. So the suggestions which will, here we had car cabs, this will change to what? We'll have cave, camel, camels, or there can be many more, suggestions based on the new characters which have been typed by the user. So you're saying that you'll wait for 50 milliseconds before you return the next result, so that user can type some more characters after, once you have returned some result. Like, so the low, so you're saying that the latency should be really, really low, maybe 10 to 20 milliseconds, or maybe 10 even 20 is, I mean, we can say that it should be close to 10 milliseconds. Then the second thing which you generally talk about as a part of the non-functional requirement is availability. In general, in this particular kind of a system, the availability should be high, right? The user should be able to see the response as soon as possible. Plus, the system should be available for, system should be always available for the user, correct? So we can say that we need high availability here. When we talk about consistency, in this particular case, you don't really care about, I mean, even if, like, let's say there is a word cat, right? Or let's say there is a word, you know word called came, and it was not in your top 10 suggestion list, but suddenly you see that, like, the frequency of this came is increasing a lot, and it has crossed this frequency. It's okay to show this result after some time, right? You don't want, like, as soon as the frequency is increased, you should start showing that as a suggestion, so that there is no hard stop if you don't show this. I mean, if it you can't say that it is giving you the wrong results in this case if you don't show came as another suggestion as soon as the frequency has crossed the minimum frequency which you are showing here, correct? So can you say that the consistency not required immediately, but the system should be eventually consistent? And the fourth point we talked about, or always talk about, is reliability. So can you say that the system should be reliable? Basically, you can say that you are not storing. You can say that, so system should be reliable. You can say that, uh, reliable in the sense that it doesn't capture user specific information. Best suggestions are returned to the from the system to the user. And there can be other things as well. Like here, we don't need authentication authorization, but you can talk about that as well as a part of. Don't go into the details at non-functional requirement for authentication authorization. Maybe you can talk about that in a detailed design, but you can consider that as another reliability factor, that you have the security layers, or you can say that security layers are in place for the system. These are your non-functional requirements. I'll stop here. I'll take a break and I'll take questions here if you have one.
Uh, Prakhar, this thing.
Can you, yeah, one by one, can you please raise hands if you have? I mean, yes, go ahead, Neha, but like from the next time, please raise your hands because there are many more people. I'm sure. Yes, please go ahead. Please ask your question.
This one system should be reliable in sense that it doesn't capture user specific information. So
Yes.
how can we implement this thing, that how can it distinguish between that it's not a user specific information?
No, so I'm not capturing any user detail, right? So I'm just saying that when you design your table, you should not capture user specific information. Like for this user, this word has been typed, because we are not providing any customized suggestions here.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions here?
Sir, how does the security layers play here? What is meant by security layer?
Security layer plays a role here in the sense that, because when you're sending the request from the client should have the valid certificates. Basically, it should be HTTPS instead of HTTP URL. It should be a secure layer. Basically, client is actually passing the SSL certificates. They are verifying that this is the client, and then we are checking that the client is actually a valid client. I mean, they have the valid certificates to actually make a call to our service. So someone can actually hack the system and start sending the details. So you have all those security layers in place present, so that your user experience is not hampered. Someone is not trying to attack your system. So overall, your system should be reliable in that sense. Uh, Again, as I mentioned, right, security, there can be multiple security layers. Like one is authentication authorization, but here you don't care about the user authentication authorization. Anyone can go and search on the Google search bar, even if they have not logged in, and you should be able to provide them the suggestions. So in that sense, authentication authorization is not required, but there are some other security checks. Like the client is a valid client, they have authenticated their certificate, so you should have SSL in enabled in these kind of cases, just to make sure that the client is passing the valid certificates.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions here?
So
Uh,
should it handle special characters? If
I
you
have
type,
mentioned that we can assume that initially we have kept all those things as out of scope, but
okay.
if you want, I can mention that as out of scope for now. But if you have time, if you want, you can handle the special characters as well. That should not be a problem. But again, as I mentioned, right, we are not considering the sentences, so you can say that space is again another kind of like not a special character but a character, right? But we are not considering all those characters at all, correct? So can I say that I'll say that other only digits and alphabets have to be considered. So it should be a valid word. As long as if it's a valid word, then you should be able to handle it. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I have a question, Prakha.
Please go ahead.
When you are saying security layers are in place, so I'm searching for some keyword, it's getting me the results. In between that, when is auth, basic auth comes into picture from Google side?
I mean, I won't say from a Google side because that is very Google specific question. But in general, for this system, the requirements which you have taken, you don't need the authentication of the user at all, right? Because uh, you without even passing the tokens, you can say that there are some tokens passed and you're authenticating those tokens. Those can be very, I mean, basic token, some information that this is a valid client from which the request is made. But at a user level, you don't have any authentication authorization in this case. Okay.
Okay.
That might be present in case of Google. I mean, Google does authentication authorization in a way once the user is logged in, and you provide the results based on that. But here in this case, you can say that authentication authorization, apart from, so as I mentioned, right, like there are security layers in place. Authentication at a user level is not performed here. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I think yes, Visa, you had a question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I have just one clarification regarding this consistency definition pertinent to this
Uh-huh.
problem statement. So, what is the system? So, what consistency level should the system maintain in this statement for this particular problem statement?
Mhm. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, let's say these were the top 10 suggestions which we had right earlier, correct? And we were returning these results to the user, correct? Now suddenly we see that there is another word. Let's say there is an earthquake. I'll give you an example, and there is a catastrophic is another word, right?
Uh-huh.
Whatever is the spelling,
Mhm.
correct? Suddenly you see that there are a lot of people who are searching for this word, correct?
Mhm.
Now, in your this search, so you will have the frequency of all these words maintained in your in your system, right? Now it's okay even if in the system uh you are not returning this as a result. So let's say the frequency of this is 20,000. Similarly, there is a frequency of cattle is 25,000, and similarly you have some frequencies. And
Mhm.
let's say now catastrophic is a frequency of 21K. Correct. So what I'm saying is when you return the suggestions, it's okay even if you don't return as a suggestion, this suggestion immediately as soon as you have, or let's say this became 20.1K, 20,001. So it's
Mhm.
okay even if you don't result this is a result immediately after this is crossed this limit, right? Ideally, cat should be removed and catastrophic should be returned, right? But it's
Oh,
okay even if this is not consistent, the result is not consistent. Eventually, catastrophic should appear as a part of this search suggestion.
okay, got it. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Any other questions here? Cool. Let's move on to the next part. So we have discussed about all the functional requirements and non-functional requirements here. Now, generally, when we talk about the functional and non-functional, then there might be some questions from your interview, or you should try to focus. You should try to keep your requirements as minimal as possible. Don't have like a lot of requirements, because you just have 45 minutes and you need to design the complete system, or 45 minutes to 1 hour, and you have to design the complete system. You have to talk about bunch of things. So keep your requirements very limited. Try to focus on the main things, and you can say that other things which are like a side points can be covered if the time permits. So you keep those as a part of those as out of scope for the design for now when you start designing. Okay. And if the time permits at a later point of time, you can always consider those points as well in your design. So we are done with the requirements here, and then the next thing which we talk about here is estimations. In the estimations, we'll figure out two parts. In general, we do estimations for QPS, queries per second, and the second part is your capacity. How much capacity, how much memory or the RAM or the disk, how much space do you need for your resources. Correct. So we talk about these two things as a part of the estimations. And before actually making any estimations, you start with some assumptions. So you'll make some assumptions. You'll do some assumptions here. Correct. So you'll ask your interviewer that can they tell you that what I mean, either you can make some assumptions by yourself, or you can ask your interviewer to give you some estimations based on the tell them some. I mean, you can say that you want some assumption. Just a second. Yes. Yeah. So you can assume some a few of the points, or you can ask your interviewer to give you some estimations or tell you some assumptions based on the points which you have to consider as a part of like the user, how many users will be there. Let's make some assumption to understand what I'm trying to say. So let's say in this case, we say that there will be approx. See that there will be approx 100 million searches per day. Correct. And can I say that always, like in general, 10% of the words being searched, or I will say 0.01. I mean, 10% is too big. 0.01% of the words being searched are new into the system. This is also very big, because like once your system is developed, right, it has like enough words present. Then in general, you won't have. You won't have like so many new words present in your system. So we are making some assumptions, and let's see if we need any more assumptions as well in this particular design. Correct. So we started with some assumptions that we have around 100 million users, 100 million users, which who are actually interested to, who are actually doing a search on this particular system. So what do we do in this case? We say that we'll start with the QPS. So we'll try to calculate what is QPS. So QPS is query per second. Now, when we talk about query QPS, generally there are two things which you need to consider. There is a read QPS of the system, and then there is a write QPS of the system. In this case, what will be the read QPS? So I'm saying that 100 million words per day, right? So 100 million is what? 100 into 10 to the power 6 words will be searched, because we'll have a search query. I mean, read will be only searching and returning the suggestions, right? That will be your read query in this case. So you have 100 million words. So basically this is per day. How much I'll put per day here. Now, how many seconds, minutes do you have? So in a day, you have 24 hours into 60 minutes into 60 seconds. It comes out to be 86400. Correct? Comes out to be 86400. And what do you do here? Once you know that this is equal to this, how do you calculate this? So you say that this is 10 to the power 7, 10 to the power 8 divided by this, can I say that this is approximately equal to 10 to the power 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Correct. So this becomes 10 to the power 5. So this is equal to what? This is equal to what? 10 to the power 3. So which is equal to what? 1000 QPS, read QPS. Correct. Now, in general, there might be some peak hours in a day, and then there will be some time when you won't have like a lot of traffic. So you can say that, because you have 1000 reads and you put a multiplier factor of 2 here, assuming that there will be some days where, some in a day, there will be timings where you'll have like a lot of traffic. So you say that this will be equal to 2000. Now we need to figure out the write QPS as well. Now, can anyone tell me what will be the read to write ratio here? Any one of you? How many times you will read before you actually write a data into your system? We have considered few of the points in our, functional requirement, and maybe that will help you to give, help you to figure out what will be the read to write QPS. So what is read for us? Read is basically returning the top 10 suggestions. What is the write? What is write? Write is basically searching for a particular keyword into our system. Correct. So we have the read and the write QPS. And by the way, like there are few people who have joined recently. So I'll share this. I'll create a public link for this so that you can watch. You can actually go through the requirements which we've already discussed. Yes. Any one of you who can answer this question, like what will be the ratio of read to write here?
10:1. 10:1.
Okay, 10:1 is one answer. Anyone else? Why are you assuming 10:1, by the way?
For
Top.
every for every write, you will get 10 suggestions.
No, so that is not the right way. You're doing it because you are returning 10 suggestions, right? That's why you're saying 10:1. But that is not the right. I'll explain. Okay, so it's not because of this reason. It's not 10:1. Anyone else who wants to give a try? Looks like there is another person. Chandan, do you want to try, or you are?
Yeah. I was saying something else. Okay, it should
Yeah.
be 10 is to 0.001%, right? That should be the ratio.
These are the new words, right? No. Okay. So see, this is the new word which I'm talking about. I'm not saying that. But we have to increase the frequency of the word which has already appeared as well, right? So that is also your right query. These are just the new words I'm talking about. This doesn't mean that you won't increase the frequency of the word which has already appeared in the system, correct? So that is not the case. Let's try to understand. You can all go on mute. I'll try to explain. So basically, in this case, if you'll see, we have said that you'll wait for some 50 milliseconds before you write another uh, another you'll return the result for another, or let's say you'll wait for 500 milliseconds before you return the next result. So you're waiting for half a second, right? And you can assume that most of the words will be returned. If the user will have to write a word, they'll be able to write that particular word within like 2 to 3 seconds. And assuming that you're waiting for every 500 milliseconds, that means that, let's say on an average, it takes 3 seconds for the user to type a word. And if you're waiting for 500, and the first, you will wait like until unless you don't get a first request. After that, you will actually wait for 500 milliseconds, right? So can I say that you return the results 6 times within, or 5 to 6 times within 3 seconds, and then you actually write a data for a particular word, correct? So can I say that you actually do multiple reads? Let's say we have catastrophic. So you'll write CAT and you'll return some result, and then user has typed OS. So you'll return some result, and then user has typed TRO, you'll return some result, and then PH has typed, you'll return some result, IC is typed, and you'll return some result. And at that point, the user presses enter. So that is the word they are searching for, right? So that is your update query, right? So you should go and update the frequency of catastrophic at that point of time. So you can see that you are doing almost 5 to 6 reads on an average for a particular word before you actually write the data into your system. So can I say that read to write ratio is approximately 5? Ratio is 5:1. So basically, you perform one write when you actually perform approximately like or on an average 5 reads. So can I say that what will be the write QPS in this case? Assuming we have calculated the read QPS correctly, can I say that there will be approximately 400 write writes per second in the system? Is this clear to everyone? Any questions here before we move on to the capacity part? Neha, please go ahead.
Uh, Prakhar, so this 5 reads, right? In every read, we will return 10 result sets. Top 10.
Correct.
So don't you
Correct.
think it should be 5 into 10, that is 50:1 ratio?
No, that the cube. I mean the ratio. Why? The read. See, what you're doing is you're returning the 10 reads, right? I mean, you are going on to the database level. Don't go on to the database level, right? This is the query, right? For one query is considered as one read. Forget about how you're reading it from the database. For the client and the server, the read is performed. There is one request sent, one read request is sent. Correct. You're considering at a database level. Maybe you will design a database in a way that you should be able to return all the top 10 results in one go. You don't need to like go through the complete database. What I'm saying is when you send one request, that is considered as one read request, right? The result return is not considered as a part of the QPS ever. Correct. You are returning some result. Your system will take care of computing that result, right? For you are sending 5 read requests and returning one, and then you are sending one write request. That's how it is working right now, right? What you are returning is a part of that result is a separate thing altogether, right? That is you are going in the API level, API design. We are talking about the system design right now. Okay? You're going in the API implementation right now. That is not what we are talking about. The read QP is still 5 read requests, right? Within for a particular word. So that's why the read request is 5. It doesn't matter what suggestions you're returning. Correct. So here the read request is 5. Like for a particular word, on an average, you'll send 5 read requests, and you'll get one result. So and user will you'll get some results, and user will search for a particular word. So the write is 1 in that case. Okay, or you can assume that it will be like 3:1. Like after on an average, there will be after 3 reads, mostly you'll be able to get the results. So you can say that this is 3:1. So this comes out to be around 600, somewhere between 600 to 700.
Okay, fine.
Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Yeah. Just give me a second. I'm coming. Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Anyone, Srinivas, you have some question?
Yeah, sir. So until unless we complete the sentence, you mean to say that write would not happen. So
Exactly.
okay.
It's
So
not
does
about sentence, right? Sentence we are not considering. That is out of scope. See, we are talking about a particular word. So let's say if you
okay.
start typing this catastrophic, then you will put CA and you'll get some result. Then you type TOS. In the meantime, you get some results. Then you type TRO, get some results. PH, get some results. IC, you get some results. And now user, as soon as I pressed enter, that is the word I was searching for. So that is my write. What are the reads? You're passing. And let's say if the user has selected one of the suggestions, then that is also a write, correct? So I'm saying
Mhm.
on an average, you will be able to write the data into your system after you have performed 3 reads. Okay.
Okay, got it.
Is it clear now?
Yes, sir. Good, clear.
Yeah. So that's what when we have calculated the QPS of read and write for the system which we have to Google type which we have to design. Now after that we do a capacity planning. So what do we do in capacity planning is we assume that there will be per day data. So generally here you go in from a day you go to seconds in case of QPS. Here in case of capacity you go from a day to years. So that's how you scale. Correct. So let's see how do you do the capacity planning here. So can I say we know that there are 100 million new words. No, not 100 million. 100 million search per day. Now, in general, what you'll store in your there will be some table. So corresponding to a table, what you'll store is what is the frequency. So for an entry, what you'll store is the word, and you'll store the frequency of that word. Assuming that there are 500 million words present in the dictionary, we are considering only English dictionary. So we have 500 million words. So how many words will be there? So can I say that each word will take some space? I'm assuming that the space will be, let's see if we can optimize this space in our design. But for now, let's assume that we have 500 million words and we have some, we have to maintain some details. So like there are on an average, the size of each word is what? 10, or let's say 7. Correct. Now you're maintaining some 7 size of each of this word. There are 500 million different words, and you also store some metadata along with these words. So let's say the maximum and each 7 size on average, correct, and one character is 1 byte. So that's why this will be 7 into 1. Correct. Now we say that we also store some metadata along with this, and each word takes, like you'll have to store the frequency. You might end up storing some other details as well. So can I say that approximately you will store another 100 bytes of data for a particular word? Now this is for a day. No, this is not for the day. This is basically new words. We have assumed these many days, these many words will be there, and then you are having some 100 million searches per day, so you'll increase the frequency, right? So you, once you have assumed that this is 500 million new words, 500 million words which you have currently present, and you are saying that you will get 0.001 words being searched are new into the system, right? So again, for this every day, can I say, so this dictionary we already had, and then every day we are getting what? 0.001. So 0.001 of 500 million is what? 0.001. This comes out to be what? 50,000? 50K new words every day. Okay, right? 500,000, 5 million, 50 million, 500 million. There are 3 zeros. 50 million, 5 million, 1,000 new words every day. Now, if you're getting approximately 50,000 new words every day, then there will be some space consumed by this. So this is the initial size, the data set which we had. Now we are getting this much every day, right? So for a day, how much extra space we are taking? So I'm saying that this will be 50K into 7 size on an average, 7 into some 100 bytes of data you're storing along with that. So this comes out to be what? 35 into 10 to the power 3. Correct. This is 10 to the power 3. So can I say that this is like 35 million approximately? 35K it was, right? 35K into 10 to the power 3. This, can I say that this is approximately what? 350,000, 3.5 million, and 35 million. So this comes out to be what? 35 million per day. Correct. Now assuming that we have to scale this for next 1 year, right? So what for next 1 year? Correct. So what we'll do now? So we need to scale it for next 1 year. So can I say that 500 million words are already present into 7 into 100? This is already there. Correct. Fixed data set. And then we have 35 million per day. So 35 million into 365 I'll do. Correct. This much memory I'll need. This much bytes I'll need for next 1 year. Correct. So this will be equal to what? This comes out to be what? So can I say that this is approximately 400? So this what? 500, 3500, 35 into 35 million into 10 to the power 4. Correct. Plus can I say that this is 400? So can I say that this is what 35 million into 400? So this comes out to be, let's say 120 approximately. 30 into 4, 35 into 4 is 120 plus 20 will do. So this comes out to be what? 5 into 4, 20, right? So 35 plus 20, 140. Correct. So can I say that this is 1 million into 1400 is 400, right?
14 billion.
140 this. Correct. Yes. So can I say this? Let's say this is 1 million and this is 10 to the power 4. So can I write this is as 10 to the power 4 as well? I'm just approximating here. This also becomes 10 to the power 4 approximately. So can I say this is equal to 36 million into 10 to the power 4? This is approx. I've done some approximations. These many bytes will need. So now these many bytes. Now if I need to divide it by KB, MB, GB. So million is what? Million is 10 to the power 6. So million is 10 to the power 6. So I'll write this as into 10 to the power 6. So this will give me what? If I do KB, MB, and GB, correct? So 10 to the power 9, right? So divided by 10 to the power 9. So can I say that this is approximately equal to 1024 into 1024 into 1024? Correct. So I'm dividing this by this. So this will give me what? Can I say this is equal to 360 GB of data? That is what we need to store. Correct. So this is my capacity planning. This is new words. These are not, sorry, these are not new words. These are words already present. These are your new words. And we did a planning for the next 1 year. So this is our capacity. Any questions here? Okay, cool. I think that. Now what we'll do is once we are done with this, we'll talk about the detailed design now. Correct. So there are a bunch of things which you should consider always as a part of detailed design. Let me write it very quickly here, and then you can work. I will consider some of those things as a part of this design, and you can work on other things later on. But as a part of the detailed design, in an interview, focus on few things. The first thing is APIs, which you need. So you list down all the APIs which you need for your system. Correct. Then you list down all the tables you need for your system, or you can say that you'll do APIs and then you'll talk about the system, or you can start with the system design as well, like APIs and system will be together. So you design all the APIs, then you talk about the system design modeling. So you create the design, you draw the components. Then the next part you do is once you're done with this, you design that, you talk about all the tables and indexes for that particular table. Then you talk about how do you actually do scaling of your system. So there are two kinds of scaling generally you talk about, either a horizontal scaling or a vertical scaling. When you talk about tables and indexes in this section, you talk about whether you want a SQL database or a NoSQL DB. Here you talk about scaling, whether you want to scale it horizontally or vertically. Then after scaling, what you talk about is partitioning, sharding or partitioning of data. Partitioning of the data. Then you talk about replications of your data. And after that, you talk about caching, talk about load balancing. If there is an authentication authorization, talk about authentication authorization. Let's say auths. You talk about authentications. and authorizations. And am I missing something else apart from this? Load balancing has been covered, caching, replication, sharding, scaling. Yes. So I think I've covered pretty much everything. Like if you have some messaging queues, that will come as a part of the modeling itself. So I mean, you don't need to take it separately, but yes. So in general, you talk about these things, and then there can be some specific things which can be very specific to the system which you're trying to design, and then you talk about those as well as a part of this. Just a second. Yes. Any questions here before we move forward from here? Like we'll discuss like all these details now, but any questions here so far? Okay. So I'm assuming that there are no questions. So let's move on to the next part now. So now what we do is here we start with the APIs. So what are the different APIs which we need here? So we can clearly see that there is a read API which will require here. Sorry. Read API. And then there is an update API which you need here. How your read API should look? So in this read API, what should you pass? Ideally, you should pass, it should be a get request, right? It should be a get request, thing like give suggestions or get suggestions. Correct? Get suggestions. And what you pass here is character array. You can call it as prefix. This will return what? Return top 10 suggestions. What will be your update API? So in the update API, this will be your post request or a patch request, whatever you want to call it as. Update frequency forward, correct? And what do you pass here? You pass character array of word, and that's it, right? So you need to update the frequency of this particular word, and you return nothing, right? I mean, you can say you can return care about that. So here, can I say that update API user is waiting for the result? In the second case, can I say that the user is not waiting for the results? Even if your system is a read heavy system, so from this we can, what all things we can identify? System is a read heavy system and should optimize for returning the results as soon as possible. Write can be slower as well because user really don't care about the increase in the frequency. I mean, in a long run, they'll care about this, right? I mean, you need to store this. Why? Because your suggestions will change depending on this, correct? But I mean, there is no direct impact. There is an indirect impact of write, but there is no direct impact of write on the user, right? So you can we say that the read API is this, update API is this, system is read heavy system, and we should optimize for returning the results as soon as possible, and its write can be slower. It doesn't mean that you should intentionally slow it, like write it slowly. But what I mean is that you should always consider that the read should be faster than the writes. You should not optimize for read. You should not optimize for writes. So if there is a trade-off between read and write, you should always give a preference to write over the write, read over the write. But it doesn't mean that write should be slow on the system. Okay. So I'll modify here my words. Preference be given to read before the write. Correct. Now let's move on to the second part where we want to design this. Correct. And once we have designed this part, then we'll be able to figure out the tables and the indexes which you need on this, right? So let's go try to draw some diagrams here. Any questions here on the read write part?
Nothing related to this, but there was a multiplier too, sir. What was that multiplier too? I missed it.
I
In
see.
case of the read QPS, we have multiplier too.
Yes. So why do we put this multiplier is because it could be possible that, see here what we are doing is we are assuming that the distribution is uniform across the day. Like the number of queries which you'll get is uniform across the day. Just a second. Yeah. So we are considering that this is uniform across the day, right? But it is not necessary, right? You might see that there are some users, there are more number of users in the peak hours, and then there are less number of users in the in your on in the non-peak hours or at the midnight or in the afternoons. So because you have done your calculation based on the uniformity of your system, but that could be wrong, right? Because there can be sudden spike, or you should always have always have some some room for extra request which is coming onto your system. So in general, what you do is you actually put a multiplier factor of 2 to 3 times on whatever you have calculated, right? Because your calculations can be wrong. It can't go drastically wrong, but it can potentially go wrong. So you give that room to your system in your system, right? To handle a sudden spike, or to handle the a bit in the like uh, you have not done the correct estimations, correct estimations. So to have this room, you actually have a multiplier factor, and this can vary from like 1.5 to 3.5. In general, recommendation is that it can be somewhere between 1.5 to 2.5. That is good enough, considering that you have done like a good work on the estimation side. Okay. Is that clear now? Yeah. Cool. Thanks for asking. So let's move on to the detailed design now. So now we can clearly see. So we'll talk about the design in general. Like there are some components which are always present in your system. Correct. Let me try to draw some of the diagrams of those. So you will have a client. So there will be a client here. Like this, there can be multiple clients. Then you have the web servers. So in general, this is the first layer which talks to your clients. Okay. You put a load balancer on the top of this just to make sure that the load is balanced across all the web server machines which you have. Correct. All the machines which you have on the web server. So send the request. Load balancer will take care of sending this request here or here or here or here. Similarly, you'll have another request and it can be sent here or here or here or here. Like this, you'll have multiple requests. Generally, you do all the authentications and authorizations at this layer. Correct. This layer is also responsible for orchestration. So in general, we do use a microservice architecture. So what does it say that like it doesn't contain any business logic, and it is an orchestration layer. It is an orchestration layer. Generally, this takes care of calling the right set of services which has to be called, or right set of application services which has to be called from the web servers to give you the results for a request sent from the client. Correct. Now what happens after this is that you have another layer which is of a load balancer. There is another layer of load balancer. So this is my load balancer. Correct. There is another layer of load balancer before our application services. In general, these are responsible for having all the business logic of your system. Correct. And they perform a specific, operations which has to be performed to return the result to the user. And then you have a DB, database layer. Again, there can be multiple instances of the DB, so you need a load balancer, which will take care of, distributing the load across the applications which you have for a particular instance, and it will query it will go to load balancer, and load balancer will take care of same data. Basically, this is replicated. And here also you have a replication. And depending on your system requirement, your cache can either sit here at this layer, so like app server will call cache. Then if the data is present in the cache, it will be returned. Otherwise, the data, I mean, the application server will call database. Sometimes you do have cache at this layer. Just a second. I'm so sorry. You might hear some background noise. So sorry for that. Sometimes you might have cache here as well at this layer, but generally it is recommended to have cache at this layer, not at the web server layer. Okay. Now for this particular system, so this is the high level design. Now for this particular system, see what we need to do is, so we have to return top 10 suggestions, right? And we also need to write frequency or increase frequency for the searched word. Correct. So can I say that I just need to store, like for a particular word, I just need to store a value like of frequency. So can I say that it's a key value pair where key represents a word and value represents a frequency. And you, whenever you have to update a frequency, you can go and update the frequency in whatever, like whenever there is, you see this word again. And if it's a new word, then you check on your database, like if it is already present. If it is not present, then you actually put a word with a frequency 1. So this is the part which can be used for the search word. Now, as we mentioned that we don't really care about, like, if suddenly that the system should be consistent with the data which is provided. What you do is, for this, if you actually have a prefix as a key and you store a list of results, right, list of key values here, list of a key value, or let's not call it as a key value, list of frequency, list of a pair of frequency, comma word here. Correct. So this is the prefix which you have, and so this can be our key, and this list contains top 10 suggestions. If we have this result present, and if we store this as a part of our database, then our read will be much more faster, right? because we don't really care about what is happening on the right side. We just need to return the result as soon as we get. So we know the prefix for which we need to find the data. Instead of actually going through this particular database, right? If we can somehow maintain this, as soon as we get a request, we actually return this result. Correct. Now, how do you actually move from here to here, right? So can I say that this can be another database altogether? This is my DB1. Which is used for update purpose. And then there can be my this can be my DB2. Which is used for read purpose. Now, how do you update? So basically this database will be created from this only, right? So can I say that there is an offline job which runs every 2 hours and check. So, and what do you do? So see, if it is like, if if the frequency is 1000 and it has increased by 1 only, then it doesn't make sense to even go and check for this particular word in this database, right? Because I mean, it's not a significant there is no significant increase in the word frequency, right? So can I say that there is a threshold value which you can maintain, threshold value from the snapshot? So basically last time when you read this to update this particular DB, so if it has crossed some values, let's say that value is threshold value is 1000. So basically the difference in the value, the count from the previous time to this time has been 1000. Then what do? You consider that as potential value which can be updated in this database, or potential key which can act as a prefix. Now what do? You go to this prefix, like the word prefixes. So what do? You always search all the prefixes. So you have the word. Let's say the word is, let's say, catastrophic, right? So let's say there is a sudden increase in the frequency of chaos. There is someone joining now, but I'll admit them. It's okay. So let's say we have a word called catastrophic. Then what will happen? And let's say the frequency from the last snapshot to this snapshot has been, I mean, it has been 10,000, right? The difference comes as 10,000. Then what do? You go to this particular offline job, will call this, read the data and try to update this database. So what it will do is it'll start with C and see if catastrophic is already, I mean, and the frequency, right? And you have the frequency here as well. If the frequency here is lesser than this frequency, then you replace this with this particular word. Same thing you'll do with CA, CAT, CATO. Till what point? Till catastrophic. Now see, what is the advantage which you're getting? The read is not getting affected, correct, by the writes, because you're writing on this system always from the live flow. Okay. Other thing which you can do is you can create this DB again from this database, right? And you directly update all the key values here itself, like you calculate everything, and this offline job will take care of creating this particular DB for like the words which you have, and then finally just replace this database with whatever values which you have created. That can be done, but that will be again like a, it will be difficult to do that. So it's better that if what you do is for each of the word for which you have seen that the threshold value has been crossed, you actually update the DB with those. So you can clearly see that we are maintaining two different tables. One table is frequency table and the second table is the prefix table, correct? And we are using an offline job to update this table from this table, and this job is run every 2 hours because we don't really care about the consistency here in this case, right? It's okay for some time if the results are not very accurate, although we are giving them the good suggestions, right, which was searched by most of the users, and you keep on updating this. And what you can do is, so this is my DB. Now any questions here before we move forward from here and I go back to the doc?
Sir,
Please.
the prefix database. So it will we are using that to update the so the prefix database. The value has suggestions So where
Yes.
does the suggestions be read from? Because
No, you're updating. So these are the suggestions which you are storing here, right? Top 10 suggestions which you have stored. Correct. Now these suggestions might get updated, right? Based on the searched results, correct? So you run an offline job to update these suggestions. So what I'm saying is, let me go back to the doc. So those suggestions are created from the DB1, the word DB, like the word frequency database or word frequency table itself. Correct. I'm not saying that that is created. I mean, this is created from this database. So this data is created from this database. Okay, because this is your source of truth. You have all the words in the frequency here. You just need to increase the read. I mean, you want the read to be better, so that's why you are having this DB. And you, for a particular prefix, imagine that you have to search all the top 10, then you will have to bring all the words. You'll have to go scan the complete table, right? Here in this case, you want the read to be very fast. So what do is you actually cache this result. So this is one layer of caching, right? You can say that this cache is created on the top of this. Are you getting my point?
yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
So for the word catastrophic, so we are just storing the key and the frequency on the left hand side, the left hand DB, and so like the suggestions which we read from some other DB and keep it on the right hand DB, and we keep updating the DB. So based on the number, the frequency, the sessions will also be changing. That will be some other job.
Sorry, can you come again? What is the frequency is changing? Okay, let me explain you again. Let's go back to this particular database. Just a second.
What I don't understand is related to
How
the suggestions. So when does the suggestions get updated? I understand the point.
This is offline job, right? So what I'm saying is, so let's say this is my. Let's go back to the doc. Let me share my screen. So this is my table 1, right? Let's say this is my T1. This is like suggestion 1. Prefix suggestion. This is also T1. This is my T2. Correct. So whenever, let's say there is a read request coming, so we'll go here. This is my application server. Now this web server is this. Now one service is let's say this call this is suggestion service. Correct. This is also suggestion service. The request will web server will call suggestion service. Suggestion service will connect to DB and it will return the suggestion for that particular prefix which is given to you. So let's say the prefix coming was CA. It will go to this CA. It will find that corresponding to CA. What are the results? So it will return all the list of whatever words which you have. Correct. So that is written. That part is clear.
Yes.
Now let's say there is an update call coming. Correct. So there is a web server. There is an update call coming from here. This load balancer. Then there is an update service. There is also update service. This will connect to some other table T2. And what you are saying is you will increase the frequency of a word, of a particular word in the. So you have the word here. You know the word. You'll just go and increase the frequency. Correct. This will keep on happening. And then there is another job which is sitting here, offline job. Or you can say that this is a cron job which runs every 2 hours. And check. So like we know the timestamp at which it has done the previous check. We store that whenever we take the snapshot, right? We know that what was the frequency there at that point. And if the frequency the threshold has crossed more than 10,000. So basically there are 10,000 frequency of a particular word is increased by 10,000. Or what you can do is whenever you have taken this into consideration, you reset it to the value to 0. Now you can see that you should not, don't reset it to 0. But what I'm trying to say is basically here in the DB, what you maintain is the previous snapshot frequency and the current frequency. If that is greater than 10,000, then you say that go and update this in your suggestion DB. If it can be updated. Is it clear now?
So now the table 2 has a word and frequency mapping.
Yes.
Whereas the table 1 has a prefix and the suggestions mapping.
Correct.
So what would get updated in the table 2 from table?
Okay. In table 1 from table 2, that's what you're asking, right?
Yeah. Correct.
So let's say the frequency of word. So here we had prefix, right? Now for CA, the results we could have was cat, camel, along with their frequencies, right? Like we had the frequency here, we had some frequency here. These are all the suggestions for CA which we had. Now we got catastrophic is the word, correct? Now what we'll do is we'll go to C prefix and see that what is the frequency which we have. Like we have the top 10 suggestions right here. We have the top 10 suggestions. We have the top 10 suggestions. So we see that if any of the word has lesser frequency than catastrophic, if that is the case in C, for a prefix C, you will go and you'll add catastrophic is another suggestion, and you'll remove the suggestion which has the least frequency.
Okay.
Same thing you'll do for CA. Same thing you'll do for CAT. Same thing you'll do for CATOS. All these are prefixes of this word, right? Same thing you'll do for CATOS. Same thing you'll do for CATOS, T and TRO. So till here, from here, this ith to till this jth. This I is my starting point, and this j can vary from 0 to n. J equal to 0 to n. Correct. So you will go and check for each of these prefixes if there exists any word which has lesser frequency than catastrophic. So you'll remove that word and you'll put catastrophic as one of your suggestion. Is it clear now?
Yeah, it's clear. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So now what are the app server here, for example? So I explained to you, right? Like there can be update service, suggestion service, and the update service. Okay. So these are two different services that you have in your system. Again, it can be part of the same service as well. You need not to be two different service altogether. It can be part of the same service, but just to explain you, I said that it can be two different services, but these can be two different APIs, part of the same services. I'll give you a bigger example. So let's say you have orders. I mean, there you have created an Amazon e-commerce website, and you have orders, and you have the customers, and you have the merchants, or orders and the users. So order service is one service, user service is one service, which handles all the details related to user. Order handles all the data related to order, and basically when this like web servers will take care of calling the order service or the user service based on the request which are they getting from the client. How do you handle concurrency while updating the frequency table? Are you talking about this one, the word frequency table?
Yes.
You can say that. Yeah, you can say that you can do it. That is not very difficult. I mean, there are ways to do it. So you can say that you will prefer consistency over the availability if you're using a NoSQL database, and automatically that provides you that. You don't need to worry about like how exactly the frequency. I mean, you can do it in the single transaction, right? So if there is another thread, that thread, until unless the write of the first has not happened, the read of the another thread can't happen. So I mean, another thread can't write. So you can take a lock, optimistic lock. Now I can't go. I mean, we don't have time, so I can't go into the optimistic lock details. But you can consider that two threads trying to write the data at the same time, both the threads won't write. It will happen in a transaction. So first the one write is completed, then only the next write will come. Correct. Now, what is the role of web server here? So there are multiple roles, right? Here, web servers in this particular example, in general, web servers can be used for multiple purposes. One reason I have written here is like one reason can be authentication, authorization. The other really is orchestration, right? So here, generally, web servers doesn't have a business logic because that is the first layer which interacts with your client, right? So if there is any issue, or if there is anything, I mean, any issue or there is any bug, then I mean, or there is, if someone is able to hack to your system, they should not, I mean, they should not directly know the business logic. So because this is the first layer, in general, you don't have the business logic, and this act as an orchestration layer. It will call different services because you have microservice, right? So this server will, web servers take care of actually calling different services. So it is usually used for the authentication authorization purpose plus orchestration purpose. So here web server, for a web server, you all the web servers have common API, right? Like both will have read API as well as update API in this case. I mean, you can call anything, any of these web servers, any of these machines with read and update. Correct. But now, as soon as this call comes here, right? Now web server knows that for suggestion, I need to call suggestion service. So for any read request, it will call this. I mean, in this case, because we have just two APIs, it becomes difficult for me to explain, but you can assume that, let's say this is the suggestion service, right? So you suggestion service, it knows that I have to read something, so I'll call a suggestion service. If I have to update something, then I'll call update service. Correct. Both read and update call can come to the update on this, and the whole logic of actually, reading and returning the result is present on this particular service itself in the application service. The business logic is handled here, and the non-business logic is handled here, and this is used for the orchestration as well as for authentication authorization purpose. It doesn't mean that you don't have authentication authorization, but this, I mean, you can have some bunch of authorizations here as well, but you can assume that if user is authenticated this layer, then they will be able to authenticate at this layer as well. But here you check all the authentications based on the tokens which you have got from the client, just to make sure that authentication, I mean, the user is actually authenticated here to actually go to the application service. Okay, let's go back to the doc.
Prakhar, one question. So instead of deleting those suggestions, right, can we also change the priority based on the frequency?
No, we are not deleting any suggestions. We are removing some of the suggestions. It's just that because we have the top 10, right? So basically you can say that you always priority, it's good. I mean, okay, from the user perspective, if you're asking, yeah, you can say that you can change the priority if you want. So basically the one with the maximum frequency can be shown at the top. The one with the least frequency can be shown at the bottom in the top 10 suggestions. But that is not very difficult to handle, right? Because you can always maintain the sorted data in the suggestion table, correct, in the key value format. So and it's like a NoSQL DB, so you can easily remove and add the data. It's like a key value pairs. So yeah, you can do that. But that was not mentioned in the requirement. That's why I didn't focus a lot on that. But yes, as you mentioned, we can do that as well. Okay. So yeah, we have already discussed on the set. Sorry.
Yeah, just one more question. So
please go ahead.
So the 3 layers, right, which you showed, business layer, web layer. So all those should be in the same network, right? Basically, they should be in the same.
No, these are over the network. These are over the network.
These are over the network. Okay.
These are over the network, right? It's just that these are internal to the system, but these are over the network, right? I mean,
yeah, but the latency increases if they are in different network, right?
But you can't have, coming back to the same thing, right? Do you want to create a monolithic servers, monolithic system, or microservices architecture? The latency, the trade-off is, there is a trade-off, right? And you will always, it's okay to have, I mean, it won't increase significantly. Yeah, I can say that few milliseconds will be here and there, but it's okay as long as your user can wait for like 10 milliseconds, like 2 or 3 milliseconds. And that also can be reduced with the help of the cache, right? You can have the cache at the layer. I mean, you don't need to make a network call.
Yeah, that's right.
Correct. Okay. But again, right, it depends, right, which will scale in the longer run. So in general, now, teams are moving towards, or the products are moving towards, microservices architecture, because you can use the same service which has already been designed.
Right.
Correct. So for example, like Amazon user service can be used at Amazon Prime, Amazon Music, Amazon e-commerce, Amazon web services, like all across all the products, right? I mean, if you create a monolithic service, then you can't leverage that an additional benefit which you would have but again, the trade-off is there, right? Like there will be a small increase in your frequency because the calls are over the network.
I'm not talking about the monolithic servers. Basically, it will be different servers as a microservices, but those will be in the same virtual network, right? Subnets and virtual network.
Okay, this will be over the network. for sure. I mean, it can be it can be, I mean, see, right, it can be over the network. It depends on where exactly your system is located. So yes, it can be within the same subnet. I mean, I'm not a networking engineer, so I'm not the best person to answer this. But yeah, you can assume that there is a network call. There is a network call. Now it can be very well localized, right? It can be present in the same geographical region just to optimize on the time it will take to return the results.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So here we'll go ahead with the NoSQL DB. And what we are saying is, in this case of NoSQL DB, you can have, you are having two tables. So table one, it consists of what? Key and a value. So key is, let's name this table. So this is my suggestion table. And what do you have here is, you have a key. So this will be a prefix, some string prefix, which will act as a key for your system, primary key, and then there will be a value. So you have a list of suggestions, and your suggestion is list of pair of frequency, which you are maintaining in a sorted order, and string. This is your top 10 suggestions. Okay. And then there is a table 2. This is your word frequency table. In this, what you have is string word, which will be your key, and you have a value or integer 64. It's frequency, which is your value. Okay. So this is like 64-bit integer, or you can say it is a long, but in general you have N64 in table. So yes, this is the value for the table 2, correct? And this is my table 1. And like, do you need any index? So because it's always based on the primary key, so you don't need any indexes on the top of this, and this is good enough to start with. Now, how do you scale it? So you can say that you can do a horizontal as well as vertical scaling. Generally, in vertical scaling, you add additional resources, but that is not very scalable. After a point, I mean, it could be possible that you can't store everything in the same database. So what you do is you do a mix of both horizontal and vertical scaling. So you have a mix of, you prefer a mix of horizontal scaling as well as vertical scaling. So what is horizontal scaling? Basically, you say that I'll add more resources instead of changing the size of the resources. How do you shard the data? So you can clearly see that we need some partitioning here because the data might grow. So we can say that because you have this prefix, so you can say that all the prefixes of one, I mean of a starting from A, you can do a range based sharding here or partitioning. So in the range based partitioning, what you do is you say that for T1, right? I'm saying for table 1. So what do you say in range based partitioning for table 1, which is our suggestion table? You say that all the I mean, I know that for A I have a separate instance. All the words starting with A, prefixes A, B, C, like you have up to Z, you'll have 26 instances. And if this data also starts growing, because you have the fixed number of, that how many, I mean, you can scale, I mean, you don't need to shard it again and again, right? Most likely, like after 2 or 3 layers, you will have the sharding is fixed because the number of words won't increase drastically at any point of time. So, I mean, if there is a lot of load on a particular server, so you can create a second layer of sharding here, where let's say A is heavily loaded, So basically what do you do here? You say that I'll have AP, AA to AP or P, and then another layer is AP, AQ to AZ. Similarly, you can do like for other partitions as well if you see a lot of flow. So this is for the range-based sharding and partitioning. In the second case where you have, words in the frequency, you actually care about, you don't care about the frequencies which are of a word which are like a too old. You don't really care about 10 years older frequencies, right? Mostly you will work for 30 days. I mean, you can maintain a rolling window of 30 days and you really care about the frequency of the last 30 days. So here you can do a, what? Date based sharding. Date based sharding. And you say that for every day, you create a separate shard. For every day you're creating a separate shard, and basically now you don't need to actually your offline job doesn't need to go and check the previous dates. It can just work on the current shard. And what you'll do is you have the snapshot. So when you actually create a today's shard, you consider you consider the last day window, and you remove the data which was present on the before 30 days from that. So that when you're getting new suggestions, you can consider the previous day and the current day one or last 30 days frequency, and you just work on those frequencies. You don't consider like older frequency than the 30 days. So you can create this, or you can have a rolling window table as well, right? Because you'll know the frequency of each day. So you create a table on the top of the rolling window, like on the last 20 days. So, and then you keep on updating only one table for a particular date. You don't need to update the previous tables at all, or previous shards at all. So you do a date-based sharding here. For every day, you create a separate shard, and you store the word and the frequency. And here, again, if the frequency for a particular word is increasing, within the date-based sharding, what you can do is second layer can be your this range-based. Within the dates, you can have range based where you say that you have a separate partition for A to P and Q to R, Q to Z, or you can say A to G, H to P, H to P, and Q to Z. These are three different shards. So you can do a date-based sharding here. Replications, you should definitely do replications. You really don't, you can have just a master in case for a table one, suggestions table. You should have like a lot of replications, maybe up to 10 replications or up to 5 replications, because it's a read heavy query. And if you see that still there is a lot of load, you can add more replications for the second table, right? You don't really need another layer of replication because writes are limited, but you can say that, and you don't care about the latency of the write. So you can say that this can be a master configuration. Why master? So this will be master slave. And this can be master configuration. Why master configuration? Because in case of this, one of the instance goes down, then there is another instance which can take the writes. So you can have a master configuration here, and like 2 replications are good enough. So caching. Now see here, if you'll see, we can cache some of our results, right? So here you can see. Sorry. Yes, please.
Why are we going with 5 replications for a suggestion?
No, I just said that because we have seen that there are like it depends on the size of the machine, right? So here I'm saying that 200 read Q 2000 read QPS. So in general, like 300 to 400 QPS can be easily handled. It depends on how many threads you have, right? So you can say that 300 to 400 300 to 400 requests per second can be easily handled. And based on that, because I have to return the results in 10 milliseconds, right? So within a second, I can handle up to 300 to 400 requests easily. Correct. So I'm saying that based on that, I'm having 4 to 5 replications. Understood?
Yeah. And because as the replications increase, the consistency aspect of it also comes in, right? So like
Here, there is no consistency worries, right? Again, we have separated out the read and write completely. When you have to update it, you will write it on all the file system. Like offline job is updating, right? So you
yeah,
update on all the masters and the slave at the same time.
okay.
So can you please explain what is this replication about master and slave? I mean, what is the master and what is the master slave replication?
So master slave is basically master is basically when you can, so you can say that all are at the same level here. I mean, you don't need a master slave here, but you can say it's a master slave where, one is master and it knows that, what all data has to be written on the asynchronous way. But here there is no master. I mean, it's the same. You can say that all at the same level. All servers at the same level. In master configure, generally master in this case will just, what it will do is it will just check if one of the instances down or not. If it is down, then it will say that I should become a master and I can maintain all the configurations, and my responsibility is to check if other instances are on up or not. And if they are not up, then I should return. I mean, I should tell my load balancer, or that can be done with the help of load balancer as well. In general, when you have a master slave configuration, then you can write on master but read from slave. But here you can say that all servers are at the same level. There is no master, no slave. Or you can create a master slave, but you're not using a master slave configuration completely. In general, you don't say that all slaves are, I mean, all the servers are the same level. There is always in general, there is a master. That's why I wrote a master slave configuration. But here you can assume that all the servers are the same level, because the write will happen together, read will, and there is no write happening in the live flow. So this should be fine. Here, master configuration means that you can write in two servers at the same time. Correct. So if there are multiple writes coming, then you should be able to write it at the same time. Now you are having the replication, so you just need to make sure that the consistency is not affected. So if they are trying to write at the same time, then you need to be a bit, I mean, your system will take care of it, but there are two different servers which can take the write request at the same time. So here, like whatever configurations you'll have are at the same level again, but all of them can take a write request, and you just need to make sure that there is no consistency problem, but that is automatically taken care by the your databases. So you don't need to worry. So in general, when you have multiple masters, then all the masters can have the writes, and generally the reads are from the slaves. So like if you have a master slave configuration, and if you don't care about consistency, then you write into master and read it from slave, and master and slave are synced on a asynchronous basis. Does that answer your question?
Yes. One more is generally the masters are orchestrators as well. I mean, they're orchestrating the whole thing. Masters.
Yes, so that is what I'm saying, right? So, but here there is no orchestration required, right? Like we have the load balancer, and load balancing is actually distributing the load, and there is always a read is performed, right? There is no write and read, and master is not taking care of talking to all the servers just to make sure that I have written into these configuration right now, and I have to write in these slave configuration. There is no write happening. So in general, you have that configurations. You will say that you can have a master slave configuration where one is master, but here there is no real use case of actually making one server is a master and other is a slave, because all the behavior across is same. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Now we go on to the yes.
Generally, for master slave, right? We should be considering cross-regional replication, right?
Cross-regional replications, but that is automatically happening here, right?
Okay.
Correct. I mean, these replications are created just to make sure that the behavior is better, right? Like, I mean, across the geographical regions there can be replications. Then across within the geographical region as well, there can be replications. So replication is automatically taking care of that, right? That is what is replication. Correct?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Now caching. So this is another important bit which we can talk about here. So there is an 80-20 rule which you might have heard of. So which says that 80% of the request on the system will query for 20% of the data, and remaining 20% of the requests will be querying on 80% of the data. So what you do here is you actually maintain, because you have a 80-20 rule. So what you say is you actually figure out what 20% of the data has to be cached. So you have, like, there can be some suggestions which are very frequently asked, or there are few words which are, I mean, it's highly likely that you will start, most of the words will start with some prefix. So you actually try to cache those prefixes, and you actually cache those 20% prefixes here, and you create a cache out of it. Now, how to cache this 20% prefixes, how to go and implement this cache is something we'll discuss as a part of the next class, where we'll use a trie data structure to create a cache and optimize on read and write. And then we'll talk about, in the next class itself, we'll talk about within the trie, how do you do invalidations, and how do you actually maintain, if you have to do a least LFU, like some strategy, remove a prefix from the cache. That will be also discussed as a part of the next discussion. But how to create a cache and how exactly your cache will look like, we'll discuss, because this will take like almost a lecture, and we'll try to understand what is the trie data structure, and how do we invalidate a particular cache, how do you actually store the data in the cache, and how this cache is created. We'll talk about this in detail as a part of the next lecture. And then you have a load balancing. So here we have said that, load balancing here, the simple way to actually balance your load. So you can, if you remember, we had multiple layers of load balancers, which helps you to distribute the load. Helps in better distribution of load across layers. Correct. So there are different ways to implement a load balancing as well. Here you can do a round robin load balancing, where you can say that like first request will go to server 1, then server 2, then server 3, then server 4. If you have 4 machines, then again server 1, 2, 3, 4. So round robin strategy for balancing the load between the servers. And authentication authorization is really not required here at this place, as we discussed. So I'm just putting not required. For this design. Okay. And the last thing which you talk about is, like, once you're done with this, then you talk about monitoring and alerting and backups. So basically what you do is you can create a monitoring and alert monitoring system, which will help you to monitor, helps monitoring the latency of each of the API. Also, you can monitor success and failure rate of the API. You can monitor success and failure rate of the API. You can also monitor the QPS for each of the API. You might want to monitor some of the other operations, like how your cache is behaving. So you can have some monitorings on the cache as well. There can be many more monitoring things, and then you have alertings. alerts on failure if request fails within a window, like request fails some X number of times in a window of timestamp of a time. This window can be like 1 hour, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on your requirements. There can be another alerting. Other kind of alerting can be alerting on the latency. So you can say that if X number of requests from total wire requests, so X percentage of request, I should say, total requests within a window taking more than X milliseconds to return some K milliseconds to return the T milliseconds to return the results. This is the second thing which can have as a part of the alerting. So these are monitoring and alerting, and generally you create backups, and these backups are in general created on the top of your, these you can have some product metrics. So you have a backups. Why do we need backups? Backups are helpful for retrieval of data which could be lost because of some bug. This is one reason. It can also help you to create some of the product metrics on backups. Why? Because you don't want to create it on the live DB, and you want to see like how many requests. You want to see that. You want to do some observations, right? Or you want to run some experiments. Then you can actually create metrics for experiments on backups. It helps you to actually do this. And then, these are the important things which you should cover as a part of the overall design. In general, like you start with the requirements. This should come up within like 5 to 7 minutes of your interview. This is the structure which you should follow with all the high level designs. Then you should talk about the estimations. This is another 5 to 7 minutes. Till this time, you'll be done with your 15 minutes. Then you spend another 30 to 35 minutes on this particular part. It depends. If it's a 45 minutes interview, you'll get only 20 minutes to discuss, 15 to 20 minutes. If it's a 1 hour interview, 30 to 35 minutes here, and another 3 to 4 minutes here on this part. 2 to 3 minutes on this part. And I think this is good enough for any design. And you should, once you're done with this, you can say that this you actually provide enough information to the to your interviewer, and this is like a good enough design. It took me some time to write and come up with these things or explain these things because I was explaining it to you, so it took 2 hours. But in general, most of these level of designs can be done within an hour. And as I mentioned, try to have limited requirements. Don't actually add so many requirements, because if you keep adding more requirements, it becomes difficult to actually create the APIs, create all the tables, and talk about each of those tables in detail within an interview. So have limited requirements and work on those requirements to actually come up with the estimations, detailed design, as well as your monitoring and alerting systems. Okay, I'm happy to take if there are any further questions. As I mentioned, like we'll have another discussion and we'll be talking about you'll be talking about how do you design the cache. If we'll try to go into the low level, not exactly low level design, but at a coding level where we actually write a code to actually design a cache. So that will be discussed as a part of the next class. Yes.
Could you share this document?
It's already been shared. I can paste this link again if you want.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Here it is.
Sir,
Please
sir,
go ahead.
sir, we have selected master in case of an
Right.
table.
Correct.
So is it like by default we take master and if the system is read heavy, the latency of the write should be less, then we go for only master slave?
The latency of the, I didn't get your question. Can you come again?
Why, specifically, what is the reason for choosing the
Selecting
master?
master. So there are
Yeah.
a couple of reasons, right? There are writes happening, right? So basically, if you have just one master, right? If you have just one, I mean, if you just have one, if you don't have replications, right? If you don't have replications, then the problem is that you might end up losing the data. So you definitely need a replication. Correct. Now, either you can go ahead with master and slave configuration or master and master's configuration. In general, here, because you are not performing any read, you can say that, it's like there is a system and you can, I mean, you can have a master slave and configuration as well, but slave won't play any role because there are no reads happening. You can say that only the write will happen to one master and asynchronously it will go to slave. That can be done. I took master because, I need to create a replication anyways. And it's better to provide a functionality where, you can write to multiple instances at the same time, and then within those, I mean, your system should take care of maintaining the consistency between those instances. Did you understand?
Okay.
That
Yeah,
is the only reason.
And
You can have
also
a
you
master.
mentioned.
Sorry, can you go? Can you come again?
You also mentioned that we would prefer to have a mix of vertical and horizontal scaling.
Yes. So basically, what you do is you can start like, you can start with like a big machines, and you can have like like a big machines, and sometimes what you do is you don't have like a lot of load, so you replace your small machines with the big machines if there is like a lot of load coming onto one instance, and eventually like you can use that small machine for handling some other load as well. So you can always do a mix of horizontal and a vertical scaling. So maybe what you can do is initially you can keep on adding more resources in a vertical way, basically replacing the current. See, in a distributed system, if you have so many machines, right, it becomes difficult to maintain those machines as well. It's not easy to maintain like multiple machines, right, because you need to take care of many more things. So you prefer vertical scaling as long as possible. Then if vertical scaling can't be done, then you actually move on to the horizontal. So basically what you say is you create you have try to have limited number of shards instead of having like so many shards for a small requirement. You should not keep on adding more machines. What you can do is in those cases maybe try to replace your current machine with a bigger machine if you can do that, and use the other machines for some other purpose. Correct. So you always do a mix of both. So basically you can do a vertical scaling, and then if it is not scaling anymore on the vertical level, then you start doing the horizontal scaling. Okay. Yeah.
And in the diagram, you mentioned the load balancer and the web server, right? So which one acts as the API gateway? Does the web server act as an API gateway or
A load balancer.
load balancer? So does that act as a reverse proxy as well, load balancer?
Okay, I am not sure what exactly is the reverse proxy, but I didn't. Can you explain me a bit more what exactly you're trying to ask with the reverse proxy?
Reverse proxy, from what I understand, it was something like, let's say the client is slow and the server is actually having a lot of bandwidth, but the client is a very slow one. So then it is unnecessarily holding the request because the request is taking a lot of time to complete. So then I think I heard like there is a concept of reverse proxy wherein it takes care of handling that using some event to Nginx servers and all. They take care of.
I'm not sure that is the case with the load balancers. I'm not sure what exactly is the reverse proxy. I don't know the details about it. But in general, I mean, you don't need to cover it as a part of the system design. That is like a very, very, again, that comes onto the network layer, right? I mean, you are not.
No, I think there is a concept called overload control also, so that server can inform the client saying I'm overloaded. so the client can take action based on that.
Yeah, but this is other way around. That will be informed to the load balancer. That load balancer might be aware of it because load balancer keep on sending the heartbeats. Here we are seeing that the server is not overloaded, but the client is overloaded. That is what basically your web servers are overloaded. That is what you're trying to ask, right?
Yes, it's correct.
So I'm not sure what is that concept. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I can't answer until unless I'm very sure. So maybe I'll but I don't think like these kind of questions will be really asked in the interviews. I have personally given interviews with like a lot of companies, but still, I mean, for the conceptual purpose, you can go into the details and maybe, I mean, if I'll get time, I'll try to check, but I'm not really not sure what exactly that is. So
I just posted in the chat. It's mostly same actually. What I know, as far as I know. So whatever load balancer does, it's similar as reverse proxy. What I understand.
So load balancer knows that what is the load on the server. I mean, on the next servers set of servers, right? It doesn't know what is the load on the previous layer.
Right.
So I don't know how that is same. I mean,
Just
I don't know if the reverse, what is reverse proxy. I'll read about it and maybe I'll try to answer that. I mean, it doesn't send the request until unless if your server is overloaded. The request stops at the load balancer and it says that I'll find the right server for you, and then the request is redirected to the application server or the web server. So that is the job of the load balancer. Now, what is reverse proxy? I'm not very sure. So I'll read about it and I'll get back to you on this.
It's 2:00.
Okay, and there is something called platform layer I have come across. Sir. Does the app layer and the platform layer mean the same?
I'm not sure what is platform layer. Generally, we use the term as application servers or application layer only. But more likely it will be same only because that is handling everything. But again, right, as I mentioned, I don't know what is platform layer. I can read about it. If you can share some from where you have read.
Yeah.
Don't try to read it from one place. Try to read it from multiple places.
Okay. So the web server. So the web servers and app servers are a separate, like separate jar files or something.
No. Machines are same. Machines are same. I mean, they can act as a web server or the application servers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Prakhar, I have a question on fundamentally the solution for the suggestions thing. So usually in the write ahead logs, right, we usually employ a try structure, correct?
Yes.
So how to actually fine line when we are giving an interview, how to actually decouple that try level structure and the discussion that we had. Usually last time when I gave, so the discussion went on actually implementing a try and stuff like that, but that when I couldn't get time in discussing the remaining part of the actual high level design. So where to line that distinction and then convince the interviewer that, hey boss, I know that, let's focus on this part, not that part.
So what you can say is like, you can say that you can always, that's a bit trickier part, right? I mean, it's not easy to handle that. It's not easy to handle that.
Yeah.
Yes. I understand your concern, but at that point of time, your interviewer might be looking for you to go into the depth and talk about that. So it can be very much possible, and it's okay to actually talk about that in detail in those cases. And what you can say is, you can always say that, let me cover these some of the other points and we can come back to this like a very quickly. So you talk about scaling very quickly. I mean, you don't go into the scaling like range, don't go into the details of it. You try to finish off that in 5 minutes or 6 minutes so that you have shared like enough details, and then you talk about the try structure in those cases.
Okay.
And there can be always a cross question. I mean, and I understand that is always a trickier part, right? But if your interviewer still want to go and discuss about that particular thing, then you don't have a choice, and you should talk about those things.
Yeah. I suppose this when we talk about this table design, right? From there it kicks off.
Again, right? So it depends, right? How you're designing your tables. So I kept it. See, that's a trickier part, right? I told you, right? Like you can start with a basic design. You give them some information, and you tell that, let's go into the details of this once I'll cover all the breadth, and then you start talking about the depth.
Okay.
Like as I did, right? I talked about everything, and I told that let's design the cache as a part of the next class.
Correct.
I will not design the cache. We'll use a try data structure. We'll design it.
Correct.
Let's cover all the other points. So you talk on the top level points and then you go into the details of those top level points after that.
Thanks, Pankaj.
Okay, cool. So that's it for the day. If you have any other questions, I can take that. Otherwise, we can close the call. And then, I've shared this doc and I've attached the image as well in the doc.
So one more last question regarding the invalidation of the cache. Are you talking about only invalidating the part which is the LRU? I mean, please recently
No.
the whole.
Let's discuss that as a part of the next class. A cache is I've left it completely right now. We haven't discussed anything on the cache. I design it and then we'll design the cache and we'll see what exactly invalidation applies here. There are a bunch of things which are missing there. So I don't want to go into the details of that right away because we'll miss some of the points. But let's discuss it as a part of the next class. We'll talk about all the points. Like we'll do some HLD on cache and then we'll go into the implementations of the cache as well.
Sir, when will be the next class?
That will be confirmed to you from the channel from wherever you have joined. So you can check updates within like next 2 to 3 days or maybe within most probably next week on Sunday, but I can't say for sure right now. Mostly next week or next week, but that will be confirmed to you over the channel from where you have joined the current class.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks. Bye. Take care.
Thank you.